Welcome to Travolting, hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore, covering the experts. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Travolting.
Hello, folks.
Coming to you live in our first virtually recorded episode.
First virtually recorded episode.
It is true. I had a COVID exposure, so I am in quarantine. But for you folks, we will continue to do this podcast. Nothing will stop us. Pandemic, rain, sleet. We're like the Postal Service.
If a loved one dies, we will still do this podcast.
If I get notice that I have 2 weeks to live, we will record the remaining episodes of this show in advance before I pass.
How possible would that be, Jeff? Like, realistically, if you had 2 weeks to live, 14 days, 24 hours in a day, we have 66 episodes to record. We've done 14 now.
Yes, so that leaves us with 52.
And so if our episodes are an average of, what, hour and a half?
Yeah, we're just going to pound a lot of coffee and knock them out in 2.5 days.
But you have 2 weeks to live. We could space them out a little bit.
No, I want to spend the rest of that time doing something. I want to bungee jump off the Washington Monument or something. I don't know. Something crazy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yes.
I don't have 2 weeks to live. I have no symptoms. Tested negative for COVID. Just had an exposure and trying to be safe.
You also got the first shot, right?
I did get the first shot of the vaccine.
I
got it. To you folks, I got it in the future, as you'll be hearing about in next week's episode. Look who's talking.
Yeah, and hopefully by this point, most people have been vaccinated. Yes,
and my offer stands from the episode that you will hear next week. If you got vaccinated, send us a picture of your vaccine card at Travolting Pod on Twitter or Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out on the episode.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an... all these people who are like, I'm not going to get vaccinated, are going to be like, wait, I can get a Travolting shout out. I'm going to go for it.
I think we just convinced like half the world's population.
Yeah, I mean,
to get a vaccine.
Biden and Fauci are just like, thank you guys. You really did us a solid on this one.
Thank you, Travolting. You guys,
Thank you.
Because of you, we vaccinated our country.
I just got a notification at POTUS just tweeted at me. Thank you. No,
you've done a great service to your country at Travolting.
Yeah. You know who else does a great service to their country? John Travolta in the 1989 film The Experts.
Oh, yeah. I suppose we should talk about this movie.
Yes, what you folks came here today, ravenous to hear us talk about. Thank you all for listening last week to the best episode ever on Basements, the Dumb Waiter.
So, fun fact, last night I was editing the episode for Basements, and I remember that bit that we did where it's just like, Tom Conti doing an ASMR voice, and and I was doing this at like 3 a.m. last night, and so part of me was like trying not to fall asleep while editing our own episode. But The Experts, no ASMR.
Yes, no ASMR. No, it's not ASMR. It's USSR.
It's USSR because
yes, this is a film set in the Soviet Union.
It's set in the Soviet Union
which was quite a twist. I did not know this was a spy movie. Or spy movie with air quotes.
I read the description, and so like I knew.
I did not.
You didn't even read the. Wow, yeah, going into this blind would be really hilarious. Yeah, I read the description on IMDb, so I knew it's like, okay, they're eventually going to go to USSR and think they're in Nebraska, and they're not. But so I have a hot take already.
Yes,
this movie is just Bill and Ted's adventure to the USSR.
Yes, this is like proto Bill and Ted with two guys who are too old to be Bill and Ted.
Yes. And instead of time traveling, they're going to the USSR.
Yes. This movie feels very it's very much a precursor to several other movies of its kind, I think.
Yeah.
It feels very Bill and Ted. It feels like it feels like This Walked So Pleasantville Could Run. Is another one that came to mind a lot.
So wait, what movie?
Pleasantville?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
lovely Tobey Maguire, Reese Witherspoon,
Yes.
Jeff Daniels film.
Yeah. This movie was hard to get through for me.
It's the best movie. No, it's fine. It's
Well, what rating does this have on Rotten Tomatoes?
This has a 26.
It deserves a 0.
Ooh, that's rough.
I could not find anything to enjoy about this movie.
It's kind of
anything.
Funny.
Nothing.
It's kind of funny.
There was like
there's some good jokes.
There's one scene where John Travolta dances sensually with Kelly Preston, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a total 5 out of 10 for me.
I would say
2.5 out of 5.
I would say 4.
You just said it deserved a 0.
Well, I said the dance deserved a 4 out of 10. I thought you were rating the dance.
No, the movie gets a 5 out of 10
for you. It's 0 out of 10. Yeah,
it's a totally adequate. I sat there and it ended, and I didn't get anything out of it. But I didn't hate that I'd spent the 90 minutes watching it.
Hey Jeff, did you know communism was bad?
Really?
I mean, if you've watched,
Rocky said something like that once.
If you've watched 1989, The Experts, then you know that communism is a bad thing. You know.
Yes. Now this is a 1989 film.
Yeah.
However, I don't know if you knew, but I read the survey. This was filmed like 3 years prior to it coming out.
Whoa, 3 years?
So I'm going to get a little bit into our context for this week, kind of where we're at with Travolta before we get into the movie.
Okay.
So we're picking up after his little down period. Blowout, blew out.
Yeah.
And then he kind of just retreated into doing things that he was familiar for, Staying Alive, Two of a Kind, Perfect, etc.
Yeah.
This was pretty much filmed at the tail end of that, and it was more or less the end of his comeback attempt.
Attempt. So later on, he's not even attempting to come back.
Yeah. So where he's trying to get his old mojo back and be like the cool, young, hot stuff in town, cool guy. However, he's a little too old at this point, and much like the previous 3 films in this period of his career, they all fail, as does this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was filmed 3 years prior to it coming out in 1989, before Travolta took a 2 to 3 year sabbatical from acting, where he just didn't work on anything, tried to kind of restructure his career. And
did Basements.
Fathers. Yeah, did Basements on a random whim. But this is basically, to me, the last youthful Travolta performance we're getting.
Yeah.
Starting with Look Who's Talking, which was filmed 2 to 3 years after this. It's pretty much all roles where he's accepted that he's playing an adult and he's playing adult roles.
Yeah.
Even if they're not good movies, even if it's a childlike adult, his character is very textually an adult and not like this, where he's trying to play a 20-year-old when he's 35 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I kind of felt the same way watching this movie, where I also kind of felt this is maybe probably the last young Travolta performance that we're going to get.
Yeah.
I mean, we might get some times when he tries, but
yeah, this is his final attempt to capture that youthful magic. It doesn't work, but we'll get to that at the end of the episode when we talk about what happens after this movie.
Yeah.
So this was filmed shortly after he finishes work on Perfect. It's directed by Dave Thomas.
What did Dave Thomas do?
He has not directed too much, but he's Rick Moranis' comedy partner from their comedy group. What's it called? Bob and Doug McKenzie. So those old things were just 2 Canadian guys kind of riffing on each other.
Yeah. Kind of like us.
This was,
but not Canadian.
Except not Canadian.
Yeah.
This Canadians. Is a sense. No, we love our neighbors to the north. But no, those old Rick Moranis Canadian comedy bits. That was Dave Thomas, of this director.
Oh,
he's also He's also in Brother Bear as one of the 2 mooses with Rick Moranis. If you've ever seen Brother Bear.
Oh yeah, interesting.
I like how you did not recognize the iconic comedy group, but I say the Moose and Brother Bear. You locked in.
That one locked in for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, the studio pretty much sat on this for a while. They knew they had a stinker. finally released it around when Look Who's Talking coming out, expecting some cross promotional, value from that. Doesn't really work out for them in the end. But here's a fun thing before we get into the movie. Paramount wanted to go back and reshoot this movie 3 years later and change some things. But Travolta had gained 30 pounds in the time since, because he hadn't been acting, and he was graduating into more adult fare. And so they could not go back and reshoot any of the scenes.
Damn.
So it's presented as originally shot
in
1985.
Can you imagine what that might have been like if like the agent is like gets a call from the studio and be like, hey Tim, I don't know if John Travolta's agent's name is Tim, but let's just call him Tim. Hey Tim, we need John back for some reshoots. Can you bring him in for a screen test? And it's like, wait, which film is this? Like, remember that one we did in 89 or 86, The Experts? I'm like, oh yeah, the nightclub one in the USSR. And they're like, yeah, we're trying to get some reshoots in. Can you bring him in? I'm like, sure. And then you said it's Paramount, right? So it's Paramount Studios, exterior day, car pulls in, cut to interior hallway. We see a low tracking shot of footsteps walking through the hallway. Cut to inside Paramount executive office. David Farnsworth is working on a whatever. Door opens, enter John Travolta, post 30 pounds. And he looks up at him, and the mullet's gone. And he's got some scruff.
From having watched Look Who's Talking, there's not really that noticeable of a difference.
No, it's definitely a dad bod. He has a little bit of a dad bod.
Yeah, but it's in the area where the scenes would not play together.
No, yeah, not at all. So
yeah.
So
instead, we're left with this artifact of Travolta, kind of in a performance that's kind of sad to look upon as this older guy trying to still be the teenager from Grease.
Yeah, like I gotta say, like when going through this 80s period of John Travolta's failures, like every single movie I saw him like try, like he was trying in almost all of those movies, like whether it was Staying Alive, like he was trying in Staying Alive, he was trying in Perfect, he was trying in Two of a Kind. Like I could tell like he was putting in the effort, putting in the work. And in this movie, I don't feel that here. I don't feel that here. Like it feels like he's just kind of like, what's the guy? He's like a dumb New Yorker nightclub owner. All right, I got it. And that's this very feels like.
This very much feels like a guy who's like been really burned by just an endless string of failures. No one wanted to see him do adult movies. No one wanted to see him now go back to his youthful stuff. He feels stuck in a rut. He has no idea what to do. Yeah. And you feel that in his performance in here. Yeah. That he's going through the motions. He's not invested in the material.
Yeah.
He's just kind of here for the paycheck in this one, it feels like.
Did he meet his wife or late wife on this project, Kelly Preston?
He met Kelly Preston on this movie, who he would go on to marry. And she would be in a few other of his movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll be talking about their relationship a little bit more in the future.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely plays a role in like career decisions, I feel like, in the future.
Yes. And so I think he probably looks back somewhat fondly on this movie just for that reason alone.
Yeah.
If not the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was like looking back at their like very sensual dance in this movie, where I was like, can you imagine like you with your kids, and it's just like, see that scene? That was the first day I met your dad, and he had to like grab my ass a lot. So, yeah. I mean, should we just get into the plot, man?
Let's start it off.
Full stop for the audience. I just have to admit something, which is I normally take lots of notes over these films. This is the one movie I did not do that. So I'm gonna.
You've been busy. You've been busy.
I have been busy, man. I'm busy right now. It was funny, Jeff, how like remember we talked about this already, but do you remember when like we started this in January and we were like, well, none of us are employed. We have so much time to do this podcast. And now like we're both basically working full-time freelance filmmakers, and yeah.
Yeah, but we are committed to continuing to finishing this podcast.
We are committed. Damn straight we are committed.
To you folks, we will get through all 66 installments of this podcast, hell or high water.
Look in my eyes. Look at my eyes.
I'm looking in your eyes.
I'm fully committed. I was up till 4 a.m. exporting 2 episodes, Basements and Perfect.
Our best episodes.
Our best episodes. I actually really like our Basements episode. That came out last week, right?
Yeah, you folks have listened to it already.
Yeah.
Let us know if you actually liked it or if it was the most insufferable thing you've ever watched.
I mean, if anything, they could attach themselves to the Toy Story conversation that we had. So
we did talk about Toy Story.
We did talk about Toy Story a lot.
Yeah. But anyway, let's start the movie.
We open on an interview.
This is maybe our sweatiest episode yet.
Yeah.
We're both very tired.
Yeah, we are both very tired. But we open on an interview scene with Kelly Preston.
It's like a black room, and it's just Kelly Preston and Brian Doyle Murray, who rules, especially in this movie.
Yeah.
I am so in the weeds, or so in like the tumble with Brian Doyle Murray.
Mm-hmm.
The underappreciated Murray.
The underappreciated Murray. Wait,
he's Bill Murray's brother.
I wasn't going to ask about that. I was like, what other Murray are you referring to? I don't know any other Murray.
Yeah.
And you just brought up another Murray.
Yeah, he's Bill Murray's brother.
Well.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Pops up in some Bill Murray movies.
Yeah.
He's funny. Underappreciated.
Funny. What's his name again?
Brian Doyle Murray.
Patrick Doyle Murray?
Brian Doyle Murray.
Henry Doyle Murray. See, this is my bit the entire time because it's like he is Bill Murray's brother. So I'm gonna say Brian Doyle Murray.
Yes, he's also the Flying Dutchman in SpongeBob.
Okay, that makes sense now. You like how that's how I can connect the dot was the Flying Dutchman in SpongeBob? You can tell I'm very tired, can't you?
Yeah, but he's in Ghostbusters too. He's in JFK. He's in a lot of movies. I like him. I like Brian Doyle Murray. I always get happy when he pops up in something.
He does a decent job in this film.
Yeah, everyone is like decent in this movie.
Not everyone. John Travolta is not. I'm sorry, John. I just think you were going through the motions in this movie.
I mean, it's fair. It's fair.
So, but anyway, we open on the interview scene with Kelly Preston and Brian Doyle Murray.
Yeah,
and it looks like it's for a job. It sounds like it's for a job. And then,
plot twist: who walks in? Charles Martin Smith, Terry the Toad himself, comes in and is like, "No, you're bad at being a spy. You need to learn how to infiltrate the American. You can't talk with these outdated references and have your accent and whatnot."
And then she like starts talking in speaking in Russian. It's like, you broke the first rule, which is never speak in Russian. And then later in the movie, they go back and speak Russian all the time. Like that, I knew that was going to happen. As soon as he said that, I'm like, rule number 1, don't speak in Russian. I'm like, well, they're going to break that rule in 2 seconds. And they did. They did.
Yes. But you know what? That's when it becomes apparent that this is not a job interview. This is a spy interview.
It's a spy class.
It's a spy school for spies.
For what country, Jeff?
The Soviet Union.
The Soviet Union.
Yes. And so it becomes, we see that they're training these future spies for the KGB in a mock town they built in the middle of Siberia? ?
It's like 80 miles off the Sea of Japan, I think.
Yeah, it has a remarkably temperate climate for Russia.
Yeah. Why isn't it like, if they're gonna set it anywhere, like why Nebraska? I mean, isn't like Minnesota or North Dakota more like Russia, like because it's cold there all the time?
Just at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they built a mock town called Indian Springs, Nebraska. And they're training these KGB operatives and sending them into the town where there's a bunch of Soviet citizens pretending to be Americans, have lived there for 30 years as Americans.
Why?
So they can see if any of the residents there ever get to pick out who's a spy and who isn't. It's a assimilation school. So that's the gimmick of this movie.
Wait a second. I gotta poke holes in this because I've been thinking about this the entire movie about like what would be the effectiveness of this whole thing, because
That's what the movie's asking. That's what the movie's asking.
Their citizens pretend to be Americans and they have to find the KGB spy.
I think the idea is whether the spies they send in can blend into the society without causing a ruckus or anyone noticing. It's like a big drama class, except for spies.
I guess it's just not. It's not linking up to me right now. I don't. Maybe it's just because I'm really tired, and other people like they might understand it more. But to me, it's just like, wouldn't you want it to be the other way around? Like, wouldn't you want to build like a prop town, but make it a Russian town, and then but everybody's in the know of like, okay, like there's going to be like a Russian and someone who's trying to be an American spy, and we got to find the American spy because you're training the population.
It's to train you how to pretend to be an American, and so you pretty much just have to live like an American.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, but the problem they're having is that they're still trapped in the 1950s because the Soviet Union and the Cold War is always trapped in the 1950s, according to Hollywood.
Because they don't believe in material capitalism, Jeff.
Yeah, they don't believe in consumerism. So they're trapped in the 50s. Everyone acts like the 50s, and they're like, and Brian Doyle and his superior officer are like, this is not doing well for our spies. We need to be modernized or something like that.
We must
shut the town down.
And you know what?
We must get experts on America. They need the experts.
That's where the title comes from. Is like of all people you could try to get to become experts in modernizing an American community, you go to New York City and you find two washed up nightclub owners.
Exactly. So Charles Martin Smith gets this thing that they're going to shut down his training school unless he finds experts. So he goes to New York and he sees these two lovable goofballs.
Two goofballs, the Bill and Ted-esque characters.
Yeah. Travis and Wendell, played by John Travolta and the otherwise non-existent Arye Gross.
Was he in anything after this?
Let me see what he's been up to.
Because I was like, should I recognize that guy from anything? And I never did.
I do not see a single other movie I recognize except for he was a character named Howard Marks in Minority Report. But I don't know who that is. I've seen Minority Report. I don't remember that guy. So yeah, pretty much looks like he just kind of he's been around.
He's been around.
Okay. He's been around.
Yeah.
But not too much in the way of like notable work. No offense.
Yeah. Sorry. What was his name again?
Arye Gross.
Arye Gross. Sorry, Arye.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to gross you out.
But yeah, Charles Martin Smith playing... What's his character's name? What's that guy's name? Cameron Smith. So he just keeps his last name. Yeah, he's like, these two guys, they know pop culture. They know America nowadays. I'm going to ask them to open a club in my town and show everyone the what's what. So he approaches them with his idea of...
He doesn't just approach them. So this scene got to me a little bit too. So there's a lot of business in the beginning with John Travolta
there's a lot of business.
Arye Gross where that doesn't matter. They get robbed at the beginning. Doesn't come back. His girlfriend leaves him.
The idea is that his girlfriend took all the stuff when she left.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's
and she leaves him a note on toilet paper. And John Travolta's just like, the real insult of it all was the toilet paper.
It wasn't her taking the furniture or leaving me, but leaving the note on the toilet paper. So they're walking down the sidewalk, and Mr. Smith is in a taxi, and he's following them. And he tells the cabbie just to keep tailing them. And they see the cabbie tailing them. They're like, hey, what you want? And so then Mr. Smith peeks out the window and be like, I got a proposition for you.
I got a club. I need the guys to run.
I need guys to run clubs. You two seem good boys. Good boys. He's like, are you trying to hamstring us or something? It's like, no. You got to trust me here. Get in the car. So they do. They get in the car. And they're like, okay, what's this nightclub deal? And then I don't remember what happens after that. They get on a flight.
Well,
get on a
they
plane.
get into the club and they're like, well, this sounds fishy, but let's just ride along. Let's see how it goes. We don't have anything else.
Yeah. And so they get on
apparently John Travolta, apparently they had tried to open a club in New York before using Arye Gross's dad's money, Wendell's dad's money.
Yeah.
And it went belly up. Did not go out well for them. So they're like, well, this guy's going to pay for it. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work. We come back to New York and try again. So they agree to go along. And they pack their stuff. They get into a plane. Mr. Smith is like, to our future. And they toast with champagne. Plot twist, the champagne's been drugged.
Oh,
what?
No.
Wendell and Travis out for the count.
And then they do the stereotypical comedic where they just like plop their faces into their food when they pass out.
Yeah, and where did they wake up? Indian Springs, Nebraska. But where are they really?
The Soviet Union.
That's right. They're drugged, knocked unconscious, and flown across the Atlantic to the Soviet Union, where they wake up in bunk beds in Mr. Smith's house.
Yeah. One of my favorite bits about the flight was, again, they say, never use your accent. But he takes a champagne from the stewardess and he says something in Russian to the stewardess. And it's like, you bitch.
I have a question, because none of the Soviets in this movie, save for like two, have accents.
Yeah. Like, is Mr. Smith a Soviet?
Yeah, he's a Soviet, but he has an American accent, even when he's exclusively with other Russians.
Yeah.
I think it was just that these actors didn't want to, like Brian Doyle Murray and Charles Martinet didn't want to do Russian accents.
They didn't want to commit to Russian accent. And it's like,
yeah, they just they were here for the money, and they're like, yeah, we'll do it.
Oh man, maybe I'm just tired to ask this question, but like, are Russian accents that hard to do? Because I feel like people do them all the time.
I feel like a good one is hard because we're so inundated in American culture with like over the top Russian accents. There's a lot of them in this movie.
Yeah.
But like every bad guy in like a John Wick or any action movie, you know, we're so used to these like over the top Russian accents. Mm-hmm. So it's powerful to have like a subtle, like even the Marvel movies, like, you know, the Elizabeth Olsen accent or the Florence Pugh and Black Widow accent. Mm-hmm. They're iffy.
Yeah.
So a good one goes a long way. Usually you acquire that by hiring a Russian actress or actor.
Yeah. Have you seen Chernobyl on HBO?
I have not.
That's a weird mix because they have some characters in that they all speak English, but they're all Russian. For folks who don't know, Chernobyl is a 10-episode miniseries on HBO Max, and it's really good. You should go watch it. But all the actors speak English, but with like subtle, slight Russian accents.
Yeah.
And what's the guy? Not Bill Skarsgård, but the older one.
Stellan.
Yeah, Stellan Skarsgård plays like this Russian bureaucrat, and he has this like really great, like not over the top, but just a really aggressive Russian accent. Like if a German had to like do a Russian accent, that's what it would sound like.
Yeah,
like Peter Negrasov. That's like basically how he sounded, and it was really good. So yeah, but Stellan Skarsgård wasn't an expert on.
No, he was not an expert.
But you know who was an expert?
John Travolta. He was the expert
on American lifestyle in the late 80s.
Yeah, so they wake up in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
Before we continue, I think it's important that we talk about the hair.
Are you starting the hair? Jeff
I'm gonna pass
Sweeney
it off.
starts. Have you recognized that I've been putting every single hair ranking episode with music now?
Yes.
Yeah. Like
By that I mean you sent me an audio recording of it,
yeah.
so I automatically
Every time we
noticed.
start the hair ranking, like I have a new like hair ranking theme song, and every time
Yeah,
it's
I
always
know.
been me that says, "But first, we got to talk about the hair," and then ba.
Yep.
And now it's you.
I'm starting it today
You're starting it today.
because I think there's potential for the new bottom of your list coming up.
Well, let me just say. Well, Jeff, I want to bring you into the hair ranking a little bit.
I've been a part of the hair
How much do
ranking
you
for
agree with
14
my
weeks.
list? How much do you agree with my list?
Let me look at it. Yeah, I'd say fairly.
Yeah.
I generally vibe with more short hair Travolta, so I disagree with. Actually, I disagree more than I agree. But all the hairs are good so far for the most part.
Yeah.
So I can't be mad at your list.
And where do you place the experts in your book?
That would be bottom.
Okay.
That this mullet is it ain't it.
Yeah, I would say the same. Like, I was watching this and like every time John Travolta was either in a medium shot or a close up, I was always looking at his mullet.
It's impossible not to.
It's impossible not to look at his mullet, and it is just it's not it, man. Like he's clearly not 20 years old anymore.
He cannot pull this off.
He can't pull this off, dude. Like he can't do the hairy the
even
Carrie
when he
look.
was 20, I'm pretty sure he could not pull this off.
He pulled off Carrie pretty well.
But Carrie has nice hair.
Carrie is nice hair.
This is a disastrous like abomination.
I want to talk to the hairstylist for this movie.
And ask, what were you thinking?
What were you thinking?
What hath you wrought?
God,
because like it like trickles down over his forehead, but then
it does.
Yeah, it's despicable. It's ugly. I don't like it.
Kelly Preston married him after that movie, I will not know.
Yeah.
Damn, not to call him out.
Yeah.
No, I would say what's at the bottom of the list? Devil's Reign.
Devil's Reign.
Let's put it below Devil's Reign.
Below Devil's Reign. The movie where you don't even see his hair gets higher than the movie with the mullet.
It's the mullet's
it is
atrocious.
That atrocious. It's terrible.
It's atrocious. I'm glad you and I both agree. We may disagree on what the best hair is, but we agree on what the worst hair is.
Yes.
Jeff,
I texted you before you watched this and said I think you may have a new lowest of the hair.
Oh yeah, I looked at it and I'm like, no, that's not his hair. That's not his hair. That's going to be like the Urban Cowboy beard where he starts off with a mullet and then he cuts it halfway through to show how he matures, you know? Never happens. Never happens.
Okay, so here's the thing. That ties into something that I simultaneously like about this movie as much as it's kind of like what makes the movie nothing. There's no growth in this movie.
No, there is no growth
There's
in this
no
movie.
point. It's about two knuckleheads.
Yep.
Your Bill and Ted's, your Wendell and Travis.
Wendell and Travis.
Your Harold and Kumar. And then 90 minutes go by and they're the exact same people with no change.
100%.
And I kind of like it. I'm glad this movie isn't trying to accomplish anything other than be a little funny. And even at that, I'm not sure it entirely succeeds. But
no.
I'm glad it's not trying to be anything else, because then I would consider it lower.
Yeah. What's interesting is when they wake up in quote unquote Indian Springs, Nebraska, they're in bunk beds, wearing like full pajamas, tops and bottoms.
Well, they're in the 50s.
Well, and they were drugged, so they wake up this way. And Wendell makes a comment like, I wasn't wearing this when I fell asleep. Someone must have redressed me.
Yeah, and they're both just like, oh, man, we must have hooked up with someone on the flight.
Yeah, that's what they say. It's like, well, it's the big combo, altitude and alcohol. Like, knocks you out, man. Probably hooked up with somebody, and...
Next thing you know, we're here.
Great logic, Travis.
Yes. So they walk down, turns out they're in Mr. Smith's house. His perfect 50s nuclear family, wife, 2 kids.
Yeah.
And they're like, do you want breakfast? And Travis and Wendell are like, no, we're going to go hit the town, check this place out. And then for like 5 minutes, it's like a Back to the Future riff where they're just walking through this 50s town. Being like, whoa, we're so out of time. This place no nightclub could succeed in this place. These people are too stiff.
Yeah. I wasn't paying attention during this moment because it was a lot of just, and now they're walking through the town.
Yes.
Seeing things, doing stuff.
It's pretty much the less interesting version of that Back to the Future scene where Marty wakes up and plays Mr. Sandman.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mr. Smith eventually takes them to the club they're going to renovate called the Polynesian Club. Or the Polynesian... What's it called?
It's like
Polynesian Club.
It's like a rainforest jungle decor.
Yeah, it's Hawaii. It's Hawaiian themed.
Hawaiian theme.
It's Polynesian themed.
Yeah.
There's a weird gag where Travolta leans over to Wendell and he's like, "Hey, you want a pack of sugar?" And like you're supposed to assume it's cocaine, but then he pulls out an actual packet of sugar and.
I watched the rated R version. By the way, on Amazon Prime, there's 2 versions: the rated R.
I watched
and the PG.
I watched the PG-13 version.
I watched the R version. I don't know what was different. There weren't that many R moments that I could tell.
Was there any nudity?
No boobs. Yeah.
Okay.
There was one scene where Kelly Preston and John Travolta were like, they weren't fully unclothed, but clothes were starting to come off.
Yeah.
More so from John Travolta than Kelly Preston.
I had that in the PG-13 version as well.
How long was the sensual dance that they did in the beginning? Because in the R version, it was long.
Very long. Maybe I watched the R version. I don't know.
Yeah. But it was like lots of butt grabbing, lots of grinding, and at one point,
pay attention.
Yeah, this is later in the movie. We'll get to it, but like at one point, she like slides down to where her face is facing his crotch. Then it cuts away to him looking around nervously, and it's like we're just left to our imagination as they're dancing.
Okay, I watched the R version.
Well, then we got to watch the PG-13 version. Maybe it's like a million times better, Jeff.
Who knows?
Remember when we watched Eyes, Two of a Kind in full screen, and there was a widescreen version? We're still probably missing out on our audience because that widescreen version probably is so much better.
Yeah, it's probably a 5 out of 5 movie.
Probably, just because it's widescreen.
But anyway, they're at the Polynesian Club. Travolta's trying to make lemonade out of lemons here, and he's like, it's like a Jetsons meets Hawaii kind of deal going on.
Yeah,
we'll make it work. Wendell not having any of this.
He's like, it ain't gonna work. No one's gonna come here.
He's like, I'm going home. This town can't handle this. So he goes and he calls his dad to ask for money to fly home. And his dad's like, I know you're a low life. You're never gonna accomplish anything. He hangs up and walks back into Travolta.
Question.
He's like, yes.
So they let them contact the outside world.
Yeah, which is very strange.
Yeah, because they don't make it very clear in the beginning. There's a little bit in the middle where it implies they're not allowed to leave. But it's not very clear in the beginning. Like when they get there, like they can leave whenever they want. It sounds like it. But there's no boundary, Like they don't talk about the boundary of this town. Which I thought would have been that would have been a better movie. If like these two
Under the Dome.
Yeah, like an Under the Dome-esque like movie where it's like they're trying to like assimilate into this town. They're like, what's beyond that? And it's like, oh, we don't go back there. And you're like, why? It's like, we just don't.
So pretty much you want The Village.
Yeah.
But with John Travolta in the Soviet
But with John Travolta in the Soviet Union. Is that too much to ask for? I don't think it is.
Get M. Night on the horn.
Get it.
But
none of that.
No. Wendell is oddly resistant to the idea of this club. He's very quick to storm it, which is confusing to me because this thing's all paid for.
Yeah.
By Mr. Smith so even if you don't think it's going to work, why not just spend their money, try it out. If it doesn't work, go home then. You're not losing anything except like 2 weeks of your life.
Like John Travolta's on the right path here.
Yeah. But Travolta's insistent. Wendell eventually comes back. There's kind of a funny bit where Travolta's just sitting at the bar crying, listening to Why Do Birds Suddenly disappear.
I was so confused. Was
Every
he
time.
crying because Wendell left?
Yeah, he's crying because Wendell left. His best friend abandoned him in Russia.
He didn't know he was in Russia.
His best friend abandoned him in Indian Springs, Nebraska.
Yeah. You know, I guess there's one little bit of progressivism in this movie, which is when Wendell shows up, he doesn't immediately like wipe his tears and pretends to be manly. He just kind of like continues to cry a little bit.
They admit their friendship for each other.
Yeah.
Right. But they're like, yeah, we're going to make this club work. And they're like, Mick Jagger, he going to be there. And then they start renovating and they need to hire some help. And when you just mentioned, you know, there's some progressivism. This is where the movie gets sent back like 20 years in terms of in which they're searching for work. They hire this one guy who works at a burger joint, which they had gone to earlier, in a not so interesting scene. So we didn't talk about it. And then they have the town's one black guy come up.
Yeah.
And Travolta just says, blood to him. Because I suppose that, you know, you just got to assume that every black guy is, would know what that means.
Right.
Because this movie is gloriously 1980s and would not fly in today's world.
Yeah. And there's a part when they're talking to this black individual in this job interview, and they're like, all right, you're hired. And he's like, great. And he turns around and says, hey, you didn't just hire me because I was black, was I? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, good. And then he walks away. What the fuck?
This movie has very strange racial politics in that it doesn't have any and just thinks that, oh, he's black, so it's funny.
Yeah.
Which is...
He's laughing at it, so you can laugh at it.
Yeah, he's laughing, so you can laugh at it being a little racist, which is...
Right.
Not good.
Not
very bad. I would say very bad.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about one movie in the future, which will be burdensome to talk about, Jeff.
Oh, yes.
And we'll have to be manly about it, but there's a lot of writing on the white wall.
Yeah. That'll be an episode that you folks are going to have so much fun listening to, just as much as we're going to have talking about it. But we're not at that movie yet.
We are. I wish I would. Yeah. I wish we were, though. I'm looking forward to how uncomfortable that's going to be.
Yeah. So they open the club, and then there's like a 3-hour long dance scene where Travolta and a very sensual Kelly Preston dance around the club.
And boy, because sensual.
Yeah, because like pretty much only old people show up, and there's like pies and whatnot being handed out. And Travolta is like, we need to liven this club up and show them what a real '80s club feels like.
Yeah.
So they get going with that dancing, and a bunch of other folks just start getting in with less successful dancing. But the town is starting to be changed.
Yeah.
And they tell Mr. Smith, the best way to do this would be is to bring in American products.
Oh, he says the American dream is through Japanese products.
Yes.
That was a good line. I was like,
that was a good line.
That was pretty good.
So so after the club opens up, Travolta starts dating Kelly Preston. Her name is Bonnie in the movie. Meanwhile, Wendell starts dating this random girl he met at a burger joint named
I barely remember her.
She's like hardly a character in the movie.
Yeah.
She is like literally just a plot device.
Yeah, definitely. And an off-screen plot device, by the way.
Yeah, a mostly off-screen plot device.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
But later. So they start shipping in the American or Japanese products and like VCRs and DVD and like CDs and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's starting to change the town. People are becoming more American. Because, a VCR can change your life, man.
Well, it's funny because they just have truckloads of these things. They're just handing them out to people.
Yeah.
And John Travolta's like, Mr. Smith, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm giving them all American goods and stuff. It's like, you sell them a $600 VCR. Yeah. You don't give it away. You give away $5 nightclub tickets.
With the VCR.
And then he like pulls him aside and says, let me give you a little something, teach you a little something about entrepreneurism. And it's like another, it's one of those small little communist capitalism digs. Like, it's like capitalism is dumb because they don't understand business.
They don't understand that you got to make money.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Right.
But, so that starts happening. The people start dressing more like the 80s.
Yep.
There's a really weird scene where Mr. Smith's wife comes back from like a time out of the town with Wendell, and she's dressed in like, go-go clothes from the 80s.
Yeah.
And you would assume that there would be like kind of a Pleasantville sequence where Mr. Smith is like, oh, you're changing. But no, he just is like, wow, you will look good. And then they just have sex in the kitchen.
And
it's
John
so
Travolta wants to watch. And then Wendell's like, no, let's get out of here. It's like, what? I like to watch.
It's such a strange scene. This Soviet operative is just immediately like, oh, yeah, cool. My wife looks good now. Let's have sex in the kitchen with these two random guys here.
Where are their kids, Jeff?
No idea. The movie never tells us.
Where are their kids, Jeff?
Whomst among us knows.
I think I know where they are.
Where?
In the kitchen.
Watching?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, but how did the American products get there? Through a Latvian smuggler named Yuri.
Named Yuri.
Yuri
is the best character in this entire movie.
Played by James Keach, the producer of the movie.
James Keach, you were the best actor on this set. I'm not joking with that. He is the best actor on this set.
He's like this over-the-top Russian stereotype. He's pretty funny in the movie.
He does a good job. I honestly love him.
He's like, yes, I brought the product in now. I need to get back to Latvia.
And he says, no. Like, once you're here, you have to stay. Which, they're like, what?
But they're like, yeah, we're arresting you. And he's like, is it because I stole condoms? And he pulls like 30 condoms out of his pockets.
It's like, they're ribbed. The ladies go crazy.
and they arrest him, and we don't see him again for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But meanwhile, Travolta and Travis and Wendell are changing the town.
Yes. Don't they go to the beach at one point?
They go to the beach, and at one point, they go to the beach for the 4th of July celebration.
4th of July celebration.
Yeah.
In the U.S. I think there's a funny, like, montage bit. There's a lot of montagey bits in this. Yeah. I think one of the best ones is when they're redecorating the nightclub. And it's like the most USA summer pop hit song, but instead of USA, it's like, Summer in the USSR. Yeah.
It's very strange.
It's very strange. I'm like, what? It's a little weird. Summer party it's like party in the USA, but party in the USSR. Try that.
Yes, the Soviet Union.
Hands up to praise my song.
But yes, there's a part where Travolta teaches these two guys how to peep when a girl walks by you, because they're like just catcalling.
He like teaches them how to peep.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, no, what you got to do is just lower your sunglasses. It's like cool.
Look over, and it works.
The 80s.
The 80s.
Yes.
Oh yeah, what a time! And like everybody, every man in the town is doing it. He's taught them the male gaze, Jeff.
Yes, he's taught them the male gaze.
Instead of hoop nannying, they now just gaze.
This whole part of the movie just goes by so quickly. It's like nothing of note happens. It's just a lot of business.
Yeah.
We get our first like plot development in an hour when I forget why they start wandering about, but they get lost in the woods.
That's because they are getting in their car to leave, and by this point, the USSR operatives in the control room, which is in this truck tanker, they see the people are starting to embrace the American way, and they're getting corrupted by the materialism. So what's their only solution? We kill the experts. We blow them up. And it's led by this guy who is like
he's dressed like a priest.
Dressed like a priest. Why is he dressed like a priest?
Because he's the town preacher.
Because assumably he's a town preacher. We don't see him as a town preacher. He's just...
Well, there's one part where he's in front of a church dressed in the robes.
Okay. Yeah. But he's actually a really bad person. So
yeah, he's terrible.
He puts a bomb in their car. And so they're driving off, trying to get back to town. they have to step out for a leak, and there's a fantastic peeing sound effect, which is like a water hose. And John Travolta comments on it. He's like, Wendell, why do you pee like a kid?
Yeah.
And he's like, what? It's like, every time I got to pull over, I got to pee, pull over, I got to pee. And it's like, well, you're peeing too. You can't judge me. And then the car blows up. And so then they're wandering in the woods.
And they come across a Soviet installation.
A Soviet installation. They just stumble upon a Soviet installation.
Yeah, they're like, hey, those are Russian letters. And then people start speaking, those are speaking Russian words. And they see Mr. Smith yelling in Russian, which he's not done at all throughout the rest of this movie.
And then they put a English sign on a truck. And John Travolta's like, well, wait a minute. See, look, that's an English sign on a truck. Wendell's like, that's worse.
Yeah, Travolta's like, we got Soviets in Indian Springs. And then Wendell grabs me. He's like, no, you idiot. We have Indian Springs in Russia.
Oh man, what a good moment! And then
it's the best movie ever.
Yeah.
So they return back to town and they're like, we need to get our girlfriends and get out. Even though it sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But Travolta grabs Bonnie and then she points a gun at him and it's like, I am KGB operative. You're under arrest.
Yeah, she puts on the accent.
But then it turns out she actually loves him. And
because she goes to shoot him, she shoots the camera.
Yeah, she shoots a security camera so he has time to escape.
And when she shoots the security camera, she immediately then drops the Russian accent. Which, again, she's Russian, not American. Like, why is she putting on the American accent again? Who knows? But she says, I had to shoot the movie camera. They were watching us. And Travolta's like, oh, were they watching us when we... And she's like, yeah. Like, oh. Do they have the tape?
They had hooked up earlier.
Yeah. And then he says, do they have the tape? 80s.
Yeah. But then Wendell goes into his girlfriend Jill and is like, we got to go. The Soviets are here. And then there's just like a weird cut.
To them in prison.
Yeah, it's them in prison. And they're like, I can't believe Jill turned us in.
Yeah. Talk about an off-screen plot device.
Yes. Literally, we don't see anything. They're just in
we don't
prison.
see them getting arrested either. They just
Bonnie's nowhere to be found.
Cut to them in jail.
Yeah.
How did they find John Travolta?
Who knows? But the two of them are just sitting there in prison.
How much time went by during that cut? A day?
I think
a night,
maybe a few hours,
a month, a year.
This movie doesn't want you to know.
But what if it actually was a year, Jeff? What if they were sneaking around in this fake American town in Russia for a year and then Jill turned them in?
Whoa.
They've been there for years.
But yeah. So they're in this prison and they have like a little heart to heart about why they got into the club business. I can't remember.
I don't remember that either. Yeah. It's like probably supposed to be the most touching moment and like none of us cared.
It's utterly non-existent.
None of us care.
The wall starts busting open.
Yeah.
It's like bricks are flying out and they're so nonplussed. Travolta's just like, we got rats now. And who comes through the wall? Who comes through the wall?
Yuri. And then John Travolta says, a big rat.
Yeah. And then he's like, yes, you should see cell they had me and I am crawling to try and find freedom. I have plane, I am pilot.
At least you have window.
He's like, yeah, at least you have window. So, it makes them...
Book our travel agent.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he can get us out of here.
How do they get out?
Yeah, they go to court or they make an agreement with Mr. Smith that they'll denounce America and stay in the town in exchange for their lives.
Well, yeah, they won't get executed. They'll just go to the gulag. Which is the gulag still a thing in 1987? I didn't think it was.
I don't know.
The gulag was a Stalin era thing. I don't think it was a Gorbachev era thing.
When were gulags abolished? I'm looking up. 1960.
Yeah, so gulags weren't a thing in 1986 when they filmed this movie.
Yeah. So the gulag does not exist at this point.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the pretty much the agreement is if they denounce America and convince the town to stop being American, they'll be allowed to live in the town.
Yeah.
But then they're like, no, we can't betray our country. And they get weirdly patriotic for two guys who have expressed no patriotism throughout the rest of this movie.
Yeah, like John Travolta's like, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
It has like a Rocky IV moment where he's like, yeah, America's a great country. We're going to show you what's what.
If I can change, then you can change. We all can change.
But then all the citizens join them, rise up, and like kick all the Soviets out. And like, we got to get this entire town to Yuri's plane. I just remember there's a really funny line by Yuri where they're asking him like, why did you come here? And he's like, I was flying plane to deliver products. And they're like, well, what were you delivering? And he's like, stereos, TDs, compact dicks.
Yeah, compact dicks. Oh,
it's a good line.
That's a good one.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So
they're trying
they have to get
out.
all the citizens to the airfield. But then a bunch of Soviets show up and there's like a gun battle.
Yeah, there's a gunfight in this.
There's a big old gunfight at the end.
And Kelly Preston, who is a KGB operative, grabs a like AK-47 and starts going ham. And then he grabs the gun from her. It's like, no, a man should be doing this. And then it's like a fun little, it's supposed to be fun spoofy because he clearly can't shoot a gun. But then the answer to which is he doesn't give the gun back to Kelly Preston. He just keeps shooting. So it's like,
yeah,
okay.
And it's just like he's shooting into the air, and Yuri comes over and takes the machine gun and gives him a pistol. And is like, this better for you.
More control.
I have big gun. It's like a dick joke. It's great. They all get on cars and they're driving to the airfield. And they all hop in the plane. But then Travolta and Wendell and Travis are trapped outside of the plane. And they're running and they climb up the ladder into the plane. And it's about to take off, but Yuri realizes, oh no, they forgot the wing is jammed. So he climbs on the outside of the plane while Wendell and Travis try and fly it. And Yuri's out there like, I fix plane.
I do this all the time.
I do all the time. It's like funny. It's fine.
And that's when
the plane takes off.
Travolta and Wendell are flying the plane.
Yeah, they're flying the plane, and they succeed.
Yeah, they get out.
Going out. Yeah, they fly it across the Pacific, and you're like, we are in international water. And
which is like, I don't know much about American airspace security and like the Department of Defense and what the protocol is for when they see a Soviet-tagged plane flying towards the States.
Well, that's because Yuri was a smuggler, so they can get through. And I suppose they're also just like, we're refugees.
Well, I guess this is a pro-refugee film, Jeff.
Yeah.
Pro-immigration.
This movie does end with a, like, and I don't want to say weird in like a bad way, but a weird like shift into a pro-immigration movie at the end where
it's like
all these
John Travolta's like, they're all immigrants, man. Like, I'm not sure how they're gonna do in New York.
And he's like, we need to set up the immigrants in the best way possible. And they bring them all to a real Indian Springs in Nebraska. And they build a town together.
You hear that, folks in Nebraska? You got a town full of ex-commies.
You got commies coming up.
I think this reignited the Red Scare of the 90s. George H.W. watched this movie and was like, there's commies in the States. We must find them.
Yep.
Calls up David Thomas.
That's pretty much the movie.
Yeah, that is pretty much the movie. You know what?
There's not too much. It's not really a movie with that much to talk about. There's no like interesting ideas or anything behind it. It just kind of happens. It's funny in parts.
One more minute until we reach the hour mark. We haven't even reached.
Well, we're gonna get past. I still have a little bit to talk about the aftermath of this movie.
Let's talk about the aftermath of this movie.
Yeah, that's pretty much the movie. It ends like that. Yuri and Wendell. I mean, not Yuri and Wendell. Wendell and Travis make a club in real Indian Springs, and everyone's happy. Yada yada. The end.
The end.
You said George H.W. Bush saw this movie. I have my doubts because nobody saw this movie. This came out in 1989, around the time of Look Who's Talking, after having sat on the shelf for a little bit. It had a $3 million budget. It made a total of $169,000.
Whoa. Nobody went and saw it.
That is a catastrophic flop.
Wow.
It is, according to thenumbers.com, it is Travolta's third lowest grossing movie that was released in theaters.
What was his first lowest?
The lowest are Killing Season and In the Valley of Violence.
Oh, man.
But this is his lowest grossing aside from those. $169,000. Which is just a catastrophic number.
Yeah, that is pretty bad. That's nobody. Nobody went and saw it.
That's actually nobody.
Yeah.
If this had come out earlier, it would have been a death knell for his career. He's lucky that it comes out around the time of Look Who's Talking, which is a success and a bit of an upswing for him. This movie did not do well critically, just as well as it did not do commercially. It has 26% Rotten Tomatoes. Even the positive reviews are like, it's fine. There's no one really passionate about this movie.
I would give it a
neither are we.
0%.
It's not a great movie. It's
pretty terrible.
It's less than a footnote in his career. It's pretty much like, the death knell of his youthful time, and he finally adapts and
becomes the dad
personality. Yeah, he settles into dad roles, like older. I don't want to say older guy because he's still in his 30s.
Look Who's Talking, Pulp Fiction.
Does all those movies that are coming up.
All those movies where he's a dad.
Yeah, even Chains of Gold, which is a movie we're covering soon. He's in a more like adult performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much the lasting legacy of this movie is that it a colossal flop, the end of an era for him, and he met his future wife.
He met his
Kelly
future
Preston.
wife, Kelly Preston.
That's pretty much the experts.
Well, great.
Yeah.
I just have nothing to add on. This movie was so boring to watch, and it felt like a complete waste of an hour and a half of my life. And
yeah, it was. It was not a chore. It was a simple watch, but at the same time, there's just not much to it.
Yeah.
It comes like that rung of 80s movies where it's just why even bother? And but thankfully, next week you folks have a hell of an episode to listen to, in which Travolta has his first success in about 10 years with Look Who's Talking.
Look Who's Talking.
Who's Talking?
And you know
so
who
we're joined
is
by
talking?
You
know who is talking in that episode?
And very special guest, Mary Grace Schumann.
Mary Grace Schumann.
Daughter of our previous guest, Kathy, from the Grease episode.
Yep.
Who'll be joining us to talk about talk about Look Who's Talking and her thoughts and theories on it.
Yes.
It's a great episode. It's one we've already recorded. You guys have that to look forward to next week.
Yeah.
Aside from that, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate, review, subscribe on all the platforms you have available that you listen on. As a reminder, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Just subscribe, like, let us know what you think in the comments section. If you want to reach us directly, you can go at Travolting Pod on Twitter or Instagram, or you can email us travoltingpodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney. You can find Stuart
on Instagram at Stuart Elmore 95. I post photos. That's about it. Jeff doesn't post at all.
I don't really use Instagram now. But I use Twitter, so come at me on it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. See you folks next week. Hope you enjoyed, and have a great rest of your day. Get vaccinated. Stay safe. Wear a mask.
Get vaccinated. Wear a mask. Bye, folks.
Oh yeah. Wait. I forgot. Very special thanks to both Rebecca Johnson for our graphic design and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for our theme music. That is taking you out right now.
Right now. Bye, everybody.